Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and this is RegWatch by RegulatorWatch.com. The World Health Organization's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control will hold COP11 in Geneva this November 17th to 22nd. The Conference of the Parties is a gathering of 190 countries that have signed the international treaty. RegWatch will be live that week covering the Taxpayers Protection Alliance's Good Cop 2.0, the tobacco harm reduction counter-conference to COP11. What's the political philosophy and strategic purpose driving the event? And is the WHO's F.C.T.C. doing more harm than good? Joining us today to answer those questions is David Williams, president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, the organization behind Good Cop 2.0. David, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Brent.
Please tell our viewers a bit about the Taxpayers Protection Alliance and why it's involved in tobacco harm reduction.
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons why the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, why we're doing this, why we've done this in the past. And so TPA is 14 years old. And before TPA, I worked at another taxpayer group and really saw the importance of tobacco harm reduction and how it affects consumers and taxpayers. So for the past 14 years with TPA, I've wanted to be a voice for consumers and taxpayers. Really, we're a rapid response taxpayer group. And this is an issue that is personal and professional. I look at what the Food and Drug Administration is doing or not doing in the United States when it comes to approving these products. I look at the World Health Organization, what they're doing, and again, what they're not doing in making these products more available and really following the science. And that's my biggest concern, is that you have these entities that aren't following the science. So that's my professional reason for doing this. My personal reason for doing this is that I grew up in a household where my father smoked 3.5 packs of cigarettes a day. He woke up with a cigarette in his mouth. He went to bed with a cigarette in his mouth, sometimes falling asleep. And my mom had to take the cigarette out before it burned the house down. And Brent, I remember visiting him at work one day, and he had 2 cigarettes in his mouth. He was smoking 2 cigarettes at the same time, and he would light one with the other, and he was a chain smoker, and it was disgusting. He took me to school in an air-conditioned car. The windows were rolled up, and I was just inundated with this cigarette smoke. And it's one of the main reasons I never took up smoking, because quite frankly, it was disgusting going to school and smelling this smoke. But looking at these products, I wish back in the 70s and the 80s that these products were available, because it would have prolonged my father's life. My father passed away at age 63. I'm 59. I mean, I shudder to think that, he was only 4 years older than me when he passed away. And a large portion of that is because of smoking 3.5 packs of cigarettes a day. He had triple bypass surgery at age 42, which at the time I thought was very old, but 42 was, insanely young to go through that sort of procedure. So this is a mission, again, that is personal and professional for me. And a lot of my staff, too, tells similar stories.
So do you think the FDA and WHO globally have lost sight of the problem?
100%. Is that they are so concerned about their bureaucracies, they're so concerned about meetings and putting out papers that they don't think about consumers. They don't think about the taxpayers. And listen, the taxpayers have a really big stake in this, a big healthcare stake. In this country, we're spending billions of dollars on people that are sick because of cigarette smoking, because of tobacco, combustible cigarettes. And it's amazing the amount of money that this country and really the world could save if people switched over to less harmful products. And again, this is the taxpayer aspect of it. You have the FDA, which is a taxpayer-funded entity, but you also have the healthcare costs in this country that have skyrocketed because of people smoking combustible cigarettes.
Is there a consumer rights play about this?
I'm glad you brought that up, because when you talk to consumers, is they just want to have the ability to try things, to use things, whether it's an iPhone or a vape or a IQOS, whatever the product is, people just want to be able to use that without interference. And you have a government agency that is stepping in between consumers and the right to try these products. And these regulations and them dragging their feet is based out of fear. regulations are always based out of fear. And the FDA says that, these new products are harmful. They are not. The science is there. The studies have been done to show that they aren't harmful. But that's the only way the FDA and other agencies can justify regulations, is out of fear. And I'm concerned that people aren't having access to products. Now, let's look at some of the other products that are out there that have helped people. We have these new anti-obesity injections that are really hitting the United States like a firestorm, and people are losing weight. I mean, it's really innovation in that space. Yet, they're not allowing innovation when it comes to quitting smoking. We have iPhones that weren't around 15, 20 years ago that have changed people's lives, not to the extent of for healthcare, but still, these are products that are on the market. Why can't these products that literally will save people's lives, they should be on the market for consumers to have access to?
Well, it's not as if a pack of cigarettes isn't a consumer product. It is, and available everywhere.
Yeah, the cigarettes are available everywhere, but what I find fascinating is, I work in Washington, D.C. I walk around the city, and I see very few people smoking. It's really amazing that over the past 10 or 15 years, the whole landscape of smoking has changed. And one thing I've noticed also is that a lot of people aren't vaping. About 5 years ago, I saw a lot of people vaping, walking around the city. But I think what's happening is people are now finding pouches and snus, and they're saying, okay, there's a different way to get my nicotine. There's a different way to do this. So again, the market is working, right? Government is not. Market is keeping up with demand and what people want. The government is not.
So how would you rate the FDA's handling of nicotine regulation in the U.S.?
I would give it a D minus. And the only reason I'm not going to give the FDA an F is because that there are a couple of products that are on the market. You have IQOS. They just approved Zyn and a bunch of Zyn flavors. So again, not an F, a D minus, because there are so many products that are still in the queue that need to be approved. And I can't give them a higher grade than a D minus, because again, so many consumers are craving these products and they just don't have access to them because of one agency, Brent. It's not, we're not talking about a labyrinth of agencies. It's one agency that is keeping these products off the market.
How would you characterize the World Health Organization's position on safer nicotine products such as vapes and pouches?
The World Health Organization is an impediment to people obtaining these products because you have phony science, and they're not listening to the science. That's the problem, is that there are a lot of studies, and we've seen Public Health England come out with studies saying that these products are 95% less harmful. We've seen other bodies come out and say that these products are better than combustible cigarettes. Yet the World Health Organization, they don't recognize and don't acknowledge the science. What they do recognize and acknowledge are the Bloomberg philanthropies, these folks that are trying to get tobacco completely off the market, and they don't want people to have access to any of these products, which is counterintuitive and actually counterproductive. Because the less that you give people access to these products, the more they're going to smoke traditional combustible cigarettes. And that's the frustrating part, is that Bloomberg thinks he's doing a good job, thinks he's saving public health. He's doing the exact opposite, because we've seen this in California. When you limit people's choice to these new products, they will go back to cigarettes. There's no doubt they will go back to cigarettes.
Does the WHO actively oppose safer alternatives?
They are absolutely actively opposing safer alternatives. They are not allowing discussion of these safer alternatives during these meetings, the conference of the parties, what we call the bad cop. We're the good cop, the conference of the people. And the other cop, the WHO's cop, they are actively keeping consumers from being a part of the process of these meetings. And that's the frustrating part, is that they're not listening to the people who need these products, that want these products, and they're not listening to the science. So that is actively denying that these products work. And they have literally thrown out members of the media from their meetings. I mean, they dragged one of our senior fellows out in India a few years ago. So it's not as if that this is a passive sort of resistance to these products. It's an active resistance where they don't even entertain the question of these products.
David, as you know, the WHO's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, the F.C.T.C., is holding COP11 in Geneva. Meanwhile, TPA is hosting their Good Cop 2.0, the Conference of the People, the counter-conference to COP11. So tell us exactly, now that we've heard some of these issues around the WHO and their resistance to safer nicotine products, how does Good Cop 2.0 address that?
So the idea started a number of years ago, and this was in South Korea. I was thinking about this when the conference was in South Korea. Moscow really kind of amplified it in my brain, and then of course in India, when they started throwing people out, and said, okay, we need to have an organized way of addressing this. Is that we wrote op-eds, we did media, but we want a counter conference. I want to go and set up a counter conference where we bring in policy people, scientists, you name it, consumers. I mean, listen, consumers are a big part of this. And I had the crazy idea of setting up this meeting where we'd bring in, dozens of experts from dozens of countries and just have panels all throughout the week, have it live streamed. And so in Panama last year, we did this, and I had no idea what was going to happen, Brent, because first of all, if you remember, COP was delayed. It was supposed to be in November of 2023. And then there were problems in Panama, I think, with some contractors that they were trying to pay, and that was delayed until February. Well, we kept on going, even though it was delayed. And between you and me, we lost a lot of money on that with hotel rooms. But I'm stubborn. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm stubborn. So I said, we are having this conference. And Martin Cullip, who's our senior fellow, who worked on the conference, we both said, we have to do this. And it was a resounding success. And I'm not saying that because I wanted it to be, is that you had WHO officials telling their delegates, don't go near TPA's COP. Do not be seen near it. Do not engage with it. And to me, that was the biggest form of flattery. If they're telling people to stay away, then we must have been doing something right, and we must have done something right during that week. And Martin and I wanted to do something bigger, and here we are, getting ready for the Good Cop 2.0 in Geneva.
And Geneva, I mean, that's the belly of the beast.
It really is. And I'm kind of happy that it's going to be there because there's going to be a lot of focus on Geneva. Panama was kind of far away for folks. But if you look at, Central Europe, right, I think we're going to get a lot of attention, hopefully a lot of media out of this, because I want people to see it. And really, my end goal is I want people to see that there is an alternative to smoking, and that there are impediments, there are roadblocks. The WHO is a roadblock, the FDA is a roadblock. I want them to see that, but there's another message I want to get out, and that is to the delegates at this meeting. I want them to see what we're doing, because I can almost guarantee you that there are going to be delegates from some of these countries that believe the way that I believe that these products should be made available, but they're always squashed by the World Health Organization when it comes to being able to say things, present at meetings. I want them to see that there are people out there, there are policymakers, there are scientists, there are consumers that believe what they believe. And I want them to come out of the shadows. And I want this to be an open invitation to any delegate that wants to come to our conference to come. And quite frankly, this is, I mentioned Conference of the People. I really mean that sincerely, is that if you want to stop by the conference, we will let you in. Obviously, don't cause trouble if you're on the other side. But we want this to be a dialogue, a discussion. And I think we're going to have some very interesting discussions about the future of the World Health Organization and whether or not it should be taxpayer funded, whether it should be privately funded. So I think there's going to be some really good discussion during the week.
Now, in a way, and to the point you just made, that to delegates, you're going to show them, I guess, in a way that it's potentially safe to stick your neck out on this issue when you show them the experts that are coming in and they're all in one place. Now, for Good Cop 1.0, you had 24 experts from 14 countries. This year, Good Cop 2.0 features 37 experts from 22 countries. That's remarkable.
It is. And as the message gets louder, more people want to be a part of this project and of this meeting. And that really makes me happy. That's the goal of this, right? Is to get more publicity on this. And this year, we're going to have an Asia Day. We're going to have a panel in Spanish because we really want to expand this message here. It's really important for us to do this. And I think, and look back at the last COP, you had St. Kitts Nevis, the delegation from St. Kitts and Nevis, is that they made some very bold statements at the beginning of the meeting of the COP meeting, and they were kind of a lone voice, right? And it just, when I heard that, I was like, this is why we're doing it, is to get more delegations to speak out and to know that we have their back, that there are a lot of people in this world, millions of people, but potentially billions of people that have their back, that want these products and think that they should be available. So I want to see more St. Kitts and Nevis delegations, but I want to see bigger countries. We need big countries. We need an Italy. We need, a major country to come out, a delegation to say, okay, we are supporting tobacco harm reduction. We are supporting these products. We want these products available. So, I have a lot of respect for St. Kitts and Nevis. We have to expand our outreach this year.
This November 17 to 22, the World Health Organization meets in Geneva for COP11, a closed-door gathering of nearly 200 countries set to rewrite global tobacco policy and push prohibition of safer nicotine products. But while the world's delegates meet in secret, the Taxpayers Protection Alliance's Good Cop 2.0 will meet in the open in Geneva to set the record straight. The Tobacco Harm Reduction Counter Conference to COP11, Good Cop 2.0, unites 37 experts from 22 countries to separate fact from fiction and confront the misinformation shaping global tobacco policy. You can watch Taxpayers Protection Alliance's Good Cop 2.0 each weekday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Geneva time on YouTube at Protecting Taxpayers. And RegWatch will be live with special coverage and expert insight throughout COP week, tracking developments and exposing tobacco control hypocrisy. Please note dates and times on your screen to tune in. So these Good Cop events must represent a significant investment for TPA. What can you say about that?
Talk to my board about that. Yes, it is it's a lot of money to put this on. But it's something that is a passion project of mine. And
is it a moral investment?
It is. It really is, because I keep on thinking about my father, and I keep on thinking about the next generation of fathers who are, sitting in their easy chair, watching sports, smoking one cigarette after another, can't breathe, they're coughing. If they had access to just one of these products, it doesn't matter which company makes it. I don't care about the companies that make these products. I care about the people that are using them and make sure they have access to whatever they need. And again, this is about healthcare. At the root of all of this is really about healthcare. And that's the message I want to get across. And, really, I guess in a way, these Good Cop meetings are dedicated to my father.
Let me ask you, do you think that the WHO has damaged its credibility?
Yeah, the WHO has absolutely damaged its credibility, not only on this issue, but I think in so many other issues. And it's really time to evaluate whether the WHO is an entity that needs to exist. In the past, we have seen them spend a lot of money on travel. We've seen, people flying first class to Africa, staying in five-star hotels, spending. And, this is a stat that we found out a few years ago, is that as $22,000 spent on travel per WHO employee. Doctors Without Borders spends $1,200 a year on travel for their personnel. Again, the WHO, $22,000 just on travel. This has nothing to do with healthcare. This has nothing to do with helping people with tuberculosis or any other disease. This is travel, Brent. That's a waste of money.
What goes through your mind when you hear the WHO describe tobacco harm reduction as an industry plot?
It's ridiculous to think that this is an industry plot, because you talk to these small vape shops, you talk to medium-sized vape shops, you talk to these folks that are working their tails off to get people to switch. And these aren't big corporate industry folks These are mom and pop vape shops in this country. And, we work with this woman, Skip Murray from Minnesota. Her son had a vape shop and it closed. And these are people, I have never been a part of an issue where people have been more passionate about. I mean, the passion that comes from the people is really incredible. And I love it. I mean, it's good to see they have this passion, that they're willing to travel to Geneva for a week. But again, this is not about industry. This is about people. And okay, let's say a company makes money off of this. Who cares? Is it helping people? Is it making people healthier? Guess what? Elon Musk is making a lot of money off of Tesla. But are electric vehicles good for the environment? No carbon, less carbon footprint? Absolutely. So you can't just say, well, a company's making money, so it's bad. No, absolutely not. This is helping people. These products are helping people.
If you had a chance to speak directly to WHO and F.C.T.C. leadership, what would you say?
I would bring a number of studies with me, and I would say, just give people these options. We're not saying you have to promote these products. We're just saying, don't badmouth them, and make sure that people have access to these products. Because guess what? People are smart, and they will know what they need when they need it. They don't need government in the middle of them and their decision making about what they should do to stop smoking. Because as I said, people will go back to smoking combustible cigarettes if these products aren't available. And listen, I know the WHO doesn't want that. And I think they kind of ignore that aspect of it because they don't want people to be smoking, but they're so focused on industry that they really lost sight of what's important.
And finally, David, what do you hope to achieve with Good Cop 2.0, not only for the week of, but long term?
This is about education, and this is about making people see that we're here and we are doing this for the consumer, we're doing this for the taxpayer, and that I just hope that we have some elected official, some bureaucrat that tunes in, that listens to this and says, wait a second, maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe I need to reevaluate. And also, I want the WHO to know they are being watched, that they cannot go along and put out misinformation and without knowing that they're being watched by a lot of people, not only in the US, but around the world. Again, you mentioned the number of countries that will be represented. I mean, it's amazing to see that, this is a global community now, and the global community is very tight, is together, and that we are ready to keep on going with this. And I hope that during the conference, I see a lot of young faces, because I want the next generation to be active, to be excited, and to know that this is a fight worth fighting for.